The men's ice hockey team is headed to Tampa, Florida to compete in the Frozen Four. The offensive production for the baseball team has been up to par, and the men's lacrosse defense has allowed 123 goals in 9 games. All this and more starting now on Bobcat Breakdown. Welcome to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Griffin Cass. Alongside me is Keith Savage and David Marr. How you guys feeling tonight?
I feel good, Griffin. Keith, this is exciting. 2 South Shore natives of Mass going at it tonight on the desk with a lot of good topics. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time overall. Ice hockey, Frozen Four, and spring season starting to get MAC play. I'm excited for the show.
Awesome. Let's jump right into it. The men's ice hockey team is headed to Tampa tomorrow to compete in the Frozen Four for the first time since 2016. With a historic moment happening around the Quinnipiac community, right now we thought it was only right to ask the Q30 Sports Twitter community to come up with their own questions that David and Keith would debate on Q30. Q30 member Ben Kane tweeted a great question. If you could take one player from the team's last Frozen Four appearance and put them on the 2023 team, who would it be and why? Keith, let's start with you.
So I'm going to change it up a little here. It's kind of an obvious answer that I'm sure David's going to have. But I'm going to go with Tim Clifton. Overall, he was a great player on this team. I think his scoring threat and passing is going to be a lead to go along with Ethan DeYoung and Colin Graff. He was the leader in the ECAC for the best plus minus at 27. With 23 assists, 19 goals, he will bring the team to another notch, and he's one of the best face-off players overall in the ECAC in the top 10. I think if you add him to this team, they're already one of the best teams in the country to see in the Frozen Four, but this team could bring that notch to maybe defeat Michigan.
Yeah, Keith, I think that's a good angle to take, but I'm going to go a slightly different angle. I'm going to go with Sam Anis, who had 50 points that year for the Bobcats. He had a Colin Graff-like year, per se. He was the leader of the offense then. Could you imagine how good the Bobcats would be if Anis was on the team right now? They would be putting up Western Michigan-like numbers this season. Western Michigan could put up 4+ goals a game. The Bobcats could put up maybe 5 goals a game if Anis was on the team. This team is loaded with talent, what the current roster is. But a 50-point guy like Sam Anis on this roster, they'd be stacked for the Frozen Four, and they would put up monstrous numbers on offense.
Yeah, I agree with that. Both of those guys would be huge. That team is really great, and of course this team has that opportunity to be just like them. But overall, too, Tim Clifton, only goal ever in the national championship for Quinnipiac ice hockey. And he had the game-winning assist to move on against BC that they won 3-2. His clutchness would be a huge part of this team because he's shown he can step up in those big times.
But I think if you put Anis on any line, especially on this current team, I think if you put him on with Colin Graff and Jacob Quillen, they would be up and down the ice, scoring a ton of goals. And that is what Quinnipiac is going to need if they're going to take down some of these teams in the Frozen Four like Michigan, Minnesota, and Boston U.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a tough path, but overall, both of those players would have been a great addition as we've seen.
I agree.
But of course, Devon Tays, another great guy who showed off all of his. But overall, I'm excited for what this team can do.
Yeah.
So schools like Boston University, Michigan, and Minnesota in the Frozen Four, is it safe to say Quinnipiac can compete with schools outside of the ECAC? David, start us off.
I don't even know why we're talking about this. Of course they can compete with anybody. I mean, have you guys not watched this season? They had 30-plus wins this year. I mean, it's only fair that they can compete with the rest of the NCAA. This has been proven since the start of the season. They went on the road to beat Boston College at the beginning of the season. They went 1-0-1 at North Dakota. They should have won that first game before winning game 2. And then they beat a stacked UConn team at home in a tight game. And then in the tournament, they beat Merrimack, a very sound defensive team. They shut them out 5-0. And then they beat arguably the biggest sized team in the NCAA in Ohio State and beat them 4-1. And the one goal that they gave up got over the goal line by inches. Of course they can compete with anybody. It's been proven throughout the season. 30-plus wins, 2 of them in the tournament, and they absolutely can compete with Michigan and the 2 other schools in the Frozen Four. I mean, I don't even know why we're talking about this, Keith. Of course they can compete with everybody.
Yeah, I agree they can compete, but Michigan's going to be a really tough matchup. Everything you say, Merrimack, Ohio State, UConn, North Dakota, they had these good ones, but Michigan, that team is elite. It's going to be tough for them to compete. I think they can do it, but Michigan's by far, I think, is the hardest opponent so far they have to face off. So that team has so many elite prospects. They have Adam Fintelli, who's 29 goals and 64 points in the squad. So many great guys. We'll talk about later how to stop this team, what we think Bobcats do. But I agree with you. I think they can compete with teams outside the ECAC, but it's going to be probably the toughest matchup so far in Michigan.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
So it's time to hear from the QBSN broadcasters of the Michigan versus Quinnipiac game this Thursday. Matt Mugno and Eric Zank are here to preview the matchup. Let's take a look.
I'm Matthew Mugno alongside Eric Zank. We will be in Tampa, Florida, Amalie Arena to call the Quinnipiac Bobcats versus Michigan Wolverines Frozen Four matchup en route to a potential national championship on Thursday night. That will start for the Bobcats. They got things kicked off here with a pep rally right in front of Arnold Barnhart Library. Eric, that's everything that's happening off the ice, but what's going to go down on the ice on Thursday?
Well, on the ice for the Bobcats, potential redemption for Quinnipiac. Last season in the quarterfinals, they faced off against the same Michigan team that they'll be facing on Thursday. They lost 7-4, so this year Quinnipiac is going to want redemption. No question about it, and a shot at what would be their first national championship.
Now the first overall pick and another top pick in the draft were Owen Power and Maddie Beniers. They were seniors that were graduating. A lot of those players return to the program and have. Who are those namely players?
Well, some of those players include Luke Hughes. He's a sophomore, but he's had a great year for Michigan. And as I mentioned earlier, he is a prospect. He's been drafted 4th overall 2 years ago by the New Jersey Devils. And at season's end, whether it's elimination or a national championship for Michigan, he will head to New Jersey to play for the Devils. So there's no shortage. There's 8 other players on Michigan's team that have been drafted by an NHL franchise. There's no shortage of talent on the Michigan Wolverines.
Now, the Quinnipiac Bobcats are a buy-in culture. They don't have a lot of these NHL draft picks, but who should we watch out for? Who should our listeners watch out for on Thursday?
For me, I'm looking at Colin Graff. He's had an excellent year. He's really filled the shoes nicely as well as Sam Lipkin has of some of the departed players from last season. Colin Graff, 56 points in just 39 games. He's had an excellent season, number 11 has. So I'm really looking at him as someone to make a difference against Michigan.
Got the York Hill boys on, the Sherbrooke boys, Yanni Peretz in net, Zach Metzer returning, the captain, the 5th year, leading his team to a potential national championship. We will be in Tampa covering the game. Listen to us live on QBSN/listen.
So after listening to Matt and Eric, what do the Bobcats need to do in order to beat Michigan? Keith, let's start with you.
Well, there's 2 things I think are the key. But the first one is slowing down this Michigan offense. This is what you have to do. Adam Fantilli, 29 goals and 64 points. Luke Hughes, 37 goals and 47 points. Mackie Semovic, 20 goals and 43 points. That's what you have to do. This team is talented. They have a lot of great talent on this roster. You need to slow them down if they want. My second point is the power play. You need to stop the power play. In this tournament, especially against Ohio State, they were trying to stick with the bread and butter of having Colin Graff and slap it to them from the point, but the defense was ready for it. So they should start attacking the slot when they are on the power play. But those are the 2 main things Quinnipiac has to do to beat Michigan. Again, like we said, this is their toughest game of the season in my opinion. But those are 2 things. This offense is the lead for Michigan. But you need to slow them down. You have to convert when you have those power plays.
I agree with you, Keith. I think the winner of this game is going to win the tournament. I really do. I think these are the 2 best teams in the tournament, and I think they have been for the entire season. And I'm going to kind of agree with you on your power play, but I think I'm going to take it up a notch. And I'm going to say their penalty kill is going to be also a big key. I go back to last year. I called the Allentown Regional Final between these 2 teams. The stats in that game, and I talked about this on Inside the ECAC a couple of weeks ago, Michigan, 3 for 3 on the penalty kill, including a shorthanded goal. They were also 2 for 2 on the power play in that game. That can't happen against this Michigan team. We saw it in the Allentown Regional Final this year when they played against Penn State. Michigan had 5 power plays and really could have scored on all 5 of them. They were only able to get one of them at the end of the 3rd period to tie the game before winning it in overtime. So I think if the Bobcats can stay out of the box, and that's how you slow Michigan's offense down. You cannot let them have an extra attacker because that's how they're going to break through their defense. But also, it's about getting the power play going. You've got to get Graff and Quillen and Metza on that top unit going. And then, of course, the second unit has to come in and clean up the slack as well if they can't get it done. You have guys like Brindamore. You have guys like Lee on defense. You also have Ethan DeYoung on that power play unit. Those guys have got to step it up. If they can win the special teams battle, they can win the game.
Yeah, going back to Michigan, this team has a lot of elite talent. That's what you have to compete with if you're Quinnipiac. It's just tough. But overall, Quinnipiac has that talent to match. Michigan might be a little over, but Quinnipiac has shown they can be clutch this entire season. They've come back with big wins. Outside of that tough loss in the ECAC tournament, I think that's where they can shine the most. But again, this is going to be a tough matchup overall. But they have one special guy named Yanni Peretz.
Yeah, and that's another angle to look at in this game too. But the 2 goaltenders, you have Yanni Peretz, who's been steady all year long, with a less than 2 goals against average. And then you have an NHL caliber goaltender in Eric Portillo, who will be going to LA possibly at the end of the season. So I think with those 2 goaltenders, it's going to really determine how the game goes. Who's going to give up that big first goal and put a lot of pressure on their team to get the equalizer? That's going to be the big key. But those 2 goaltenders are also going to dictate the pace of this hockey game.
How would you guys say that the ECAC is different from the Big Ten and the NCAA tournament?
I think it's completely different. I think that with the ECAC this year, and we've heard it all season long, the Bobcats don't play any high caliber competition in the ECAC. Well, you know, it is hard to win a league championship in any league, especially in the Big Ten and the ECAC. But I think the Bobcats they've been so consistent. They've been blowing people out. It's one thing to win those low caliber games that you don't get up for, but it's another thing to win and look good doing it. The Bobcats have done that. Now it's easy for a team like Michigan to win against those teams like Penn State, Ohio State, and Minnesota, and they don't have to look good doing it. They can just win the game. But the Bobcats beating those low-tier teams in the ECAC and then beating some of the high-tier teams like Cornell, like Harvard, twice this season, I think that's proven that the Bobcats can play with anybody, and we saw it last week in Bridgeport. They can compete with anybody.
Yeah, it's tough with that because you see a lot in college basketball teams like Gonzaga. I see them similar to the ECAC, getting 2 teams that kind of make it every time. Gonzaga, St. Mary's for basketball. You see this year, Colgate and Quinnipiac. But the team, it's going to help them still. Being in a worse conference, of course, is going to be a little tough. But overall, they still make sure to make the schedule so they play against those better teams. But being the ECAC can sometimes struggle. But lose that Colgate game, I thought it was going to be way worse for the team. They've proved they can still win even coming off a tough loss. That was the big point. They said we can bounce back off a big loss like that. And now they're in the Frozen Four, which is big time.
Yeah, and you think about the games that they've lost, those have been really tight. The 2 Colgate games they've lost, the one where they went up to Cornell and kind of struggled, those were close losses. They can win.
It's time to take our first break of the night, but don't go anywhere as we hit the field to talk all things spring sports.
Meet the scan, a simple procedure whose mission is to detect lung cancer early.
I'm here to save you.
But I feel fine.
That's great, but you may still be at high risk for lung cancer.
Oh man, that's a new fence.
If you smoke, early detection could save your life. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Type 2 diabetes can have a big impact on your life, but how can it be prevented? Well, the first step is knowing if you have prediabetes, a serious medical condition that puts you at high risk for type 2 diabetes. 1 in 3 American adults has prediabetes, but more than 80% don't know they have it. The good news is, prediabetes can be reversed, and for many people, healthy changes in their daily routine can make a big difference. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a unique mix of all kinds of things.
Come on, Jules, spot me on this last one. There it is. Keep going with it. Leo.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
I think it's just vapor with flavor.
It won't hurt my kid like cigarettes, right?
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
My kid?
My kid knows it's dangerous.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
Welcome back. The baseball field here at Quinnipiac is peculiar, with the hill in the outfield that spans from center field all the way to the foul pole on the right field line. David, how much of an effect does this have on the baseball team?
I think it has a big effect, but I think the new field dimensions have kind of helped the Bobcats defensively. I look at their defensive stats. You know, they have a fielding percentage of 96.6%, which is second in the MAC. They've committed only 30 errors, which is fourth best in the MAC. And they're second in the MAC in double plays with 24. yeah, that there must be some magic or dirt or grass at the baseball field they put in there for the new dimensions, but it seems to be paying dividends for this defense, because the defense has been playing tremendous for Quinnipiac in the infield, and the outfield is going to catch up. But all in all, I think they've really been benefiting from the new dimensions at the Quinnipiac baseball field.
I'm going to go, there's one major play that stuck up against Maris. Your left fielder, Jaron Zimbardo, tries to catch the ball, goes off his glove, and he thinks this goes out of play. And what they say, I'm saying, nope, doesn't go out of play. Inside the park, home run. How does your left field, who's been for 3 years, still doesn't know the out of play, and that's not something you talk about even more? But how does also, it might not be his fault, it might be the ump's fault too. How do the umps not know about what is the out of play spot? That's a major problem for the entire season. For a field that has been here for this long, you have to make it clear what's the out of play in the field. For any team, that's going to hurt. But also in the hill part, for some players, that could trip them up to try and lose the ball. We both agree it has to be near field. The Omaha project, that's something that we have seen. I'm not sure if it passed. I like the idea, but I mean, you can't have a hill in the outfield as a Division I college baseball team. I think that needs to be fixed. Again, the out of play is the big thing. That was one it was remarkable to me. The guy who's been there for 3 seasons, and he doesn't know where the out of play is, or it's the ump. One of the two sides. But it has to be a clear line. What's the out of play spot? Because say that happens in a big game, that legitimately changed the whole game. It was 3 runs. Probably would have been an inside the park home run. That's what he thought. Would have gave up 1 run, a man on second and third. That can't happen overall on a Division I baseball field.
So staying with the baseball team, is the offensive production masking over the fact that their defense and pitching have not been up to par? Keith, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the offense production has been great, but they've been coming back into games too much. These pitchers have been struggling. Some of these guys started out pretty good. Kevin Snyder's been solid lately, but only giving up 2 earned runs the last 2 games. But one of the games, he gave up 9 hits, something you don't want to do it that much. Jimmy Hagan has given up over 8 hits and 3 earned runs in his last 3 starts. Those 2 pitchers are the main guy you need to get going. If they can get going, then overall, this team can come back. But some batters like Jaron Zimbardo, who overall, I'm a fan that they can bounce back. But he's been struggling with the strikeouts. But my big guy, who I think is under way too much pressure, is Andrew Rabayo, a first year. Giving up today 6 earned runs against CCSU in 2 innings and 3 earned runs in the other previous game against Marist. They're asking way too much for a first year. They got to calm down. I guess the starters haven't been doing the greatest, but you can't be doing that much pressure on a first year reliever. 2 innings, 1 innings, and he's struggling. Overall, you got to calm him down, put him in time, but you can't be giving all this time to somebody else. You got to trust your veterans on this team.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that's definitely got to be the key for the Bobcats moving forward. They have a negative 36 run differential. It's something that you don't want to see down the road, but they've certainly exceeded my expectations. And if the offense continues to find its footing, and they did, it seemed like, after they swept Marist, even though it wasn't that easy, but they scored 26 runs against Marist, and they've scored 45 runs in their last 5 games. And you could look at the other side of the coin and be like, well, 26 runs, that's not great over their last 4. And you'd be right. But I think the offense is starting to find a rhythm. But I think you're right, Keith. If the pitching cannot get it together, they're going to have to outscore everybody to win, and that's not a formula you're going to want to have late down the road in the season.
Yeah, it's definitely something you have to step on. For comparison, MLB-wise, you see the Boston Red Sox just like that right now, both of our favorite teams. They've been struggling on offense. They've been doing great offense, struggling on the pitching side. But Quinnipiac needs to get it going. They always lose some of their key guys the next year in pitching. So overall, my question for the team is how are they going to build up over time to make a better pitching unit? Because right now, the relievers, but your starting pitchers are still struggling like every single year. They have to step it up.
What's good for the Bobcats is that they're 4-2 in the MAC, and they're in one of the top 5 spots right now in the standings. So if they could keep that moving forward, they're going to be just fine.
So let's shift to the softball team. David, who has impressed you more in the pitching circle so far? Jacqueline Gonzalez or Sydney Horan? Gonzalez has pitched 64 and 2/3 innings this season, while Horan has pitched 82 and 2/3.
Well, based on the statistics, I got to go with Sydney Horan, Griffin. I think that she's definitely has the edge in this one. A 1.97 ERA in 13 games, which is really impressive. She's pitched 8 complete games, 53 strikeouts on her resume. No disrespect to Jacqueline Gonzalez at all, because she's been just as impressive with her 1.21 ERA over 11 games. But Horan has the better record. She's played more games. She's been, I think, the most consistent pitcher between the two of them. So, Keith, I don't know about you, but I just got to give Sydney Horan the edge in this matchup. She's played more. She has a great ERA, and she's pitched 8 complete games, which I think is unheard of in softball.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm going Jacqueline Gonzalez. But both pitchers are phenomenal. They've both been great. They both got banged up, getting a lot of runs on them against Canisius. But against Canisius is one of the best teams in the MAC in softball. I think it's a tough time. But my big thing why I have Gonzalez over Horan is Horan gives up a lot of home runs. She's given up 5 in the year. Ron Gonzalez has not given up a single home run this entire year. So that big thing you see in mostly every sport, but mainly in baseball, softball, is the momentum. And giving up home runs is going to move the momentum down and down even more. So I think Horan is going to give up that momentum sometimes. But both those two pitchers, again, are the key players on this roster. But Gonzalez, he has been struggling in the MAC with a 4.12 area compared to Horan's 2.19. But I think that's going to come back up, and Gonzalez is going to be the key to this team winning.
It's time for the last debate of the night. The defense for the men's lacrosse team has allowed 123 goals in just 9 games. Does this statistic have more to do with DiMuccio or the guys in front of him? Keith, kick us off.
I think it's easy to the defense. DiMuccio, I think, is one of the best goaltenders in the MAC. I think he's phenomenal, but he gets put in terrible spots. We repeatedly see shot clock going down all the way from 90. All of a sudden, somebody cuts, somebody right in front of him, or the offense is struggling and giving up DiMuccio in terrible spots with the defender right in front of him. You can't be doing that for the defense to keep on giving up as much as possible. It's just 18 goals given up against Mount St. Mary's in the previous game is unacceptable. But I think that mainly comes with this defense. If you're struggling with that, DiMuccio has nowhere to go because he's one of the second best overall in saves in the conference, over 50% on Arts saved. It's just the defense. It's not helping him at all.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Keith, but I'm going to spin it a different direction with this one because I know the defense isn't great, but Nick DiMuccio, I think, has done the best he can to keep the team afloat. But it's the offense that's not doing its job. Like the Greek myth of Atlas, Keith, who couldn't put down the sky until someone took his place. Nick DiMuccio is being pressured right now like Atlas. He can't put down the sky until the offense takes his place. They are putting way too much pressure on the defense. Where's the adjustment here on offense? They had a lead on a conference-leading Manhattan team, 3-2 going into the second quarter. When Manhattan made adjustments in that second quarter, what do the Bobcats do? They score 2 goals the rest of the game. They have to start adjusting. They're 2-5 in their last 7 games after starting 2-0. They've scored 16 goals their last 2 games. You shouldn't have to take Canisius, who was a winless team at that point, to overtime. You can't take a winless Wagner team and lose them in overtime. They've got to step it up offensively.
It's time to take our final break of the night, but don't go anywhere as we take a look at the Frozen 4 pep rally send-off for the men's ice hockey team. And of course, we have final roars. We'll be right back.
Honey, what I think you need is a socket wrench.
I played JV basketball.
I'm sorry. I don't think it looks right.
This is good, and it's all good, baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/therightseat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
I'm gonna call my dad.
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer.
She's on the honor roll.
She's just not the type.
No way.
No way.
No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
I think it's just vapor with flavor.
It won't hurt my kid like cigarettes, right?
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
My kid?
My kid knows it's dangerous.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a unique mix of all kinds of things.
Come on, Drew, spot on this last one. There it is. Keep going with it. Leo.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
This past Monday, the university held a Frozen 4 pep rally and send-off for the men's ice hockey team. Let's take a look at the event. It's time for everyone's favorite part of the night, Final Roars. David, the floor is yours.
Being a part of Q30 and QBSN has allowed me to achieve a big goal of mine, being behind the scenes for the production of a baseball game. This past week, I began my internship as part of the video team for the Iowa Cubs, the AAA affiliate of the Chicago Cubs. Being the only member of the production team that wasn't from Iowa really bothered me, but I enjoyed working together with everyone throughout the weekend. During the iCubs 3-game series against the Columbus Clippers at home, I worked replay and the above home plate camera. I was also able to create a podcast for the team that will run throughout the season. After this semester, I will be going back out to Des Moines to continue this already exciting journey. I don't think I would have gotten the chance to go out there had it not been working in Q30 this year. Being on 3 different beat teams and coming to Studio 125 on Mondays and Tuesday nights allowed me to tap into another level of myself, and because of it, I am now looking forward to becoming the newest iCub in the iClub.
Making a Division I college sports team is a dream that most athletes have but few ever achieve. Being on 2 Division I rosters is even more unlikely to happen. But graduate student Logan Andrews is doing just that. After being a star goalkeeper for Quinnipiac women's ice hockey, Andrews decided to join the softball team. We have not seen her play a game yet on the field, but can only imagine that time will come soon. Andrews is also not the only Bobcat to ever complete this. Kelly Babstock was a phenomenal player in the ice while also being a top player in the lacrosse teams in the mid-2010s. Current women's basketball assistant coach Jen Fay led the hoop team to multiple MAC championships before deciding to join the softball team for a year in 2019. I can't wait to see how Andrews performs and gets her first at-bat and join this elite list of athletes.
Being a senior, it's my first time on desk, and I'm super grateful for this opportunity. Tonight was an absolute treat. Additionally, going to Atlantic City nearly a month ago with Noah Epstein to call Quinnipiac basketball at the MAC tournament was the most memorable moment that I've experienced in student media here at Quinnipiac. While it didn't work out for the Bobcats, this was a goal of mine this past summer coming into the school year, getting to go on this trip. It was a short trip. We were only there for 37 hours. However, being a senior, I can confidently say it was easily my favorite moment when I think about my time in student media. I thank the higher-ups in QBSN for believing in me. My gratitude is immense. All right, that's all the time we have for Bobcat Breakdown. What do you guys think the Bobcats are going to do in the game against Michigan on Thursday?
I think it could be a win, but most importantly, I think I'm going to be watching it outside on the piazza as we have a planned engagement event that we have overall. I think everybody watching it's going to be a fun time because they haven't been here in such a long time, so I think it's going to be fun. How about you, David?
Yeah, I agree, Keith. I think it's going to be an excellent game. I'm really excited to watch the first game before that, Boston U and Minnesota. Obviously, a lot of Miracle on Ice references, but I think that game is going to be really entertaining. BU's youth and speed on the perimeter against Minnesota, a team that is loaded with talent. And then, of course, the nightcap, Quinnipiac, a team that has 30-plus wins this season, going against the most talented team in college hockey in Michigan. 2 exciting hockey games on Thursday night. Can't wait to watch both of them. And I think if you're Quinnipiac, obviously the biggest key is special teams, but we obviously need to see if the Bobcats can put enough goals past Eric Portillo. They weren't able to get enough past him until that third period where they put on a surge to kind of keep it close. But they're going to need to score quick goals against Portillo, against Michigan, to put the pressure on them. And that way their defense, those big guys like Metza and Lee, can really suffocate them on the back end, and that's how they can win.
Can the Bobcats go all the way to the national championship game?
I think they can. I think it's going to be 4-3 overtime. Colin Graff scores, and it's ball game. That's how I think it's going to go against Michigan. I'm not exactly who they will play, but David, what do you think?
I'm going to say no. I like Michigan here. I just think that they're too talented. Portillo's the better goaltender, and I think we're going to get a Big Ten title game rematch with Minnesota and Michigan in the championship.
All right, that's all the time we have for Bobcat Breakdown. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Q30 Television. A massive shout out is in order to everyone working behind the scenes and all the amazing producers who make this show possible. For Keith Savage and David Marr, I'm Griffin Cass, signing off from Hamden.